All right, I think we have a quorum to avoid sending our meeting deep into the night. Let's get started. Call the meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone could rise. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. McGee, if you could take roll, please.
Chair Jeff Buzzell,
Here.
Vice Chair Victoria Firestone,
Here.
Commissioner Eugene Ramirez, he is excused. Commissioner Al Bogue,
Here.
Commissioner Hunter Chang,
Here.
and alternate Zilla Tobiano. We have a quorum.
Thank you. The agenda was posted 72 hours prior to the meeting at City Hall, the Crowell Public Library, and the Rec Department, as well as on the city's website. At this point, we'd like to invite any comments from the public on items that are not on the agenda. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Commissioner reports. Have any commissioners attended any conferences or meetings that they'd like to report on to the commission? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to department reports. Acting Chief Blondet.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commission members. I appreciate you having me here tonight. I'm happy to report for the end of last year, we actually finished off in a good point here in the police department with all the areas that you would like to see go down with crime and burglaries and such, larceny and so on, all with a decrease. And those areas which you would like to see go up went up for the end of last year. As far as for January of this year, we've also had a decrease in overall Part 1 crimes, which is a plus for us, and we're actively working to decrease that as time goes on. Staffing is doing pretty well with the police department, which has helped in this regard. I think it was mentioned at a previous meeting, although I didn't attend, there was some discussion related to technology and the data lake that we needed for the police department. The data lake I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is it's a system that's going to help us enhance our services here in the police department when it comes to analytics. The data lake is in addition to our CAT-RMS that we currently have. And what it's going to do is allow people like Angie, our records manager, to produce better reports to help us do analytics on crimes, produce reports for this commission, for the council, and for our people within our department. So we're looking forward to that. The estimated time for that to be implemented or rolled out is here in the next month or so. I'm currently working with the West Covina Police Department, which is, they kind of host us with Mark 43, which is our CAT-RMS provider. And they're telling me that we should be able to get that rolled out in the very near future. As far as the other technology that we have in the department, I think you're all familiar with the Flock LPR cameras. We currently have 22 of those cameras deployed throughout the city of San Marino. And with any luck here in the next few months, we'll have an additional 9 cameras deployed. 8 of those cameras were actually approved by council. One additional was supported by a recent donation that we received from the community that was very well received. That's going to help us put 1 additional camera out in addition to those other 8. So we will have just over 30 cameras. Those cameras have helped us in a variety of ways, which I'm sure you're pretty familiar with, but I'll highlight a couple. For one, what we get notified, early notification when there's a stolen vehicle or a wanted felony vehicle that's coming through the city. The time in which that turns around and notifies us and we're able to deploy our units is critical. So these cameras have helped us over the last year, just over a year, make multiple arrests and investigate multiple crimes. Our detective bureau uses the cameras on a regular basis to investigate anything from a hit and run accident that might have a description of a vehicle to an actual vehicle or persons that were seen in the area of a crime. And we therefore check our cameras, which we did today when we had a burglary that was reported this afternoon. One additional area that I'd like to highlight as far as within the technology area, as you might know as well, we received a grant from the Office of Traffic Safety for California, actually 2 different grants, one of which I was going to highlight. It's going to enable us, it's called the TRIP grant, and that's the Traffic Records Improvement Project grant. It's going to enable us to get e-citation writers as well as crash reporting software for the police department. That again is going to help us in a variety of ways. The e-citation writers are used by other departments currently. Others are getting on board, but essentially it allows you to go from a paper citation to an electronic citation, therefore reducing the amount of time it takes to write a citation, cutting back on the cost it takes, the cost to order the actual citations. In the future, if the court gets on board, it'll allow us to send those electronically to the court, not having to deliver them directly to the court. As far as on the back end with Angie, again, in records, her personnel, it'll allow her to transmit the data and the information that comes from all of our crashes electronically through SWITTers into the state so that we can transfer that information. So overall, it is a huge plus for us to get that grant approved. And we are in the process right now of actually working towards having that finally approved with council for the actual purchase of the software. And with that, I'll open with any questions.
I was on mute and I was talking to myself. Thank you, Acting Chief. I'd like to go around the table and invite questions. Vice Chair Firestone, any questions for Acting Chief Blondet?
I don't. Thank you for the thorough report.
Commissioner Chang?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Commissioner Bowe?
I know you don't want to, or in the past, we've not spelled out exactly where the 30 cameras are, but is it safe to say that we have cameras in several areas within the city?
Oh, absolutely. I can tell you the goal was to get major thoroughfares throughout the city as well as some arterial streets. So it's safe to say that they're on the north, the south, the east, and the west, and everywhere in between. With the expansion of the new cameras that we're getting, our goal is to saturate the neighborhoods a little bit more. Like I said, so let me just give you an example. If a car was reported stolen and hit one of the cameras at let's say the far west side of the city at Huntington Granada, we didn't have cameras for a little ways throughout the stretch of the city, which would therefore be a delay. If we were going to get a second report of it hitting an additional camera, that would tell us where to set up our vehicle, so to speak. Now we're going to have more cameras in between that stretch to help us basically, set up properly and all that. And we already do that. It's just that you can't have one at every single street along the way of Huntington. So we're doing the best. And Flock as a company has been really, really supportive with this endeavor. Because typically they would, charge for moving cameras around if you see problems once they've been deployed, and they're super helpful when it comes to that. When we see a problem and we don't like the where it's positioned or the fact that it's not getting proper sunlight or any of that, they're super helpful in that regard.
Thank you.
I also had some questions about the Flock cameras. You said that there was one that was funded by a donation. I'm just curious, how much does each one of these cameras cost?
So they're not cheap. We got in at a great time when they were $2,000 flat. Since then, the price has gone up to $2,500, and that $2,500 is per camera per year. So they have a lease program. The way that Flock works, that you don't actually purchase the camera, you actually lease the camera, and it's on a year to year. They'll at least allow you to do that. A lot of cities or even HOAs or customers that actually get them in these HOAs, they make them do it for 2 years. We've been able to get a lot of different things with Flock that are helpful, which is a year-to-year contract. In the event that we wanted to decrease or increase our numbers, we're allowed to do that. I'm sorry, I probably got off on topic.
That's good. Perhaps the donator wants to remain anonymous, but can you share with us who donated the money for this additional Flock camera?
Yeah, it was somewhat anonymous. They went through the police foundation and then was therefore given to the police department as a, basically to put forth for your camera project for Flock and just for one camera, but they did fund it for 2 years. So it's one camera for this year and one camera for next year.
Wonderful. And are there any traffic management functions that the Flock cameras are used for? I'm thinking, I know we don't have red light cameras in the city, but is there any usefulness to them to see areas of potential problems and divert other resources to address those issues?
Unfortunately, not from a traffic aspect. They don't really do any surveying or anything like that. They strictly pick up plates. I suppose in the future that could be something but their whole thing is about crime suppression, prevention, and deterrence, to not ever have it happen. So they're not geared so much to the traffic safety aspect, so to speak.
Thank you. Any other questions from anybody else? No, any questions from any member of the public? Seeing none. The recommendation of staff is that we receive and file the report. Do I have a motion to receive and file? Al, thank you very much. Commissioner Bowe, seconded by Vice Chair Firestone. All in favor? That passes unanimously, and we'll move on to the Fire Department report. Chief Rueda.
Good evening, Commissioners. You have my written report in front of you, but I would like to highlight and explain just a couple areas. So our city experienced by far the worst month in terms of COVID infections. And that wasn't just limited to residents. It was extended to city staff and certainly the fire department. So for all of 2021, we had 512 cases of infection in the city. And just in January of 2022, we had 770 cases. And the call load and what we saw in the field certainly reflected that. We saw our first death in San Marino since early of 2021. So that was an unfortunate circumstance. The other observation we made, along with other local area fire departments, was the hospital surge that occurred. Our hospitals are normal hospitals. We respond to Huntington Memorial, San Gabriel, Arcadia Methodist. Were all full and caused ambulance offload delays of up to several hours. I included in my report an attachment of an article that appeared in the Tribune to give sort of a front lines view of what just the firefighters are dealing with. Firefighter paramedic Dave Tannehill transported one of our residents, an elderly resident, to Huntington Memorial, and was just uncomfortable dumping her in the waiting room and letting her be on her own there. So the result was he ended up staying with her for several hours, which was I thought very compassionate and caring, and exactly what we'd expect of our firefighters. Dave, in fact, did end up contracting the infection. Unfortunately, took it home to his family, which I think is outlined in the article. So I'm not speaking out of school here, but I thought it was a really good firsthand view of just what the firefighters are dealing with. And if you recall back to the early days of the pandemic, there was many unknowns about what would transpire with the infection. So this has been going on for these firefighters almost 700 days now. So I'm glad to see the numbers are going down, but not soon enough. And January was by far our worst month for our city. The other incident I wanted to highlight, since we had not had a meeting, was a gasoline spill that actually occurred in the city of Pasadena. several hundred gallons of gasoline entered the storm drains and ended up in our city in the wash that runs under Mission Street in our Mission area, ended up running through the wash that runs behind a number of homes in our city, and ultimately departed our city into Alhambra, just off of Huntington Drive. The noteworthy takeaway from the event was nobody was hurt, no damage to any infrastructure, but it did give us the first real-time opportunity to utilize our wireless emergency alert system, which allows us to the city of San Marino to take over the local cell towers to put out alerts and warnings to the public. And it worked without a hitch. We described an area that went along the wash, and we alerted our residents to the smell and what actions they should take. That evening, I was in contact with Michael Throne, our engineer, and our police chief, and good coordination. I wish Pasadena had let us know a little earlier that the gasoline was coming, but that was something we brought to their attention. That concludes my report, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Obviously, I think I can speak for everyone when I say that we all deeply appreciate the commitment and passion of your department in the COVID times and the impact that it's had on your department. And it's all of your hard work and all of your firefighters' hard work is very much appreciated. Let's go around the table for questions. Vice Chair Firestone, any questions for Chief Rueda?
Chief, just unrelated to when you were talking about vacancies, can you share again how many we lost due to the vaccination requirement?
We lost one individual that was, his employment was terminated, and he was committed to not being vaccinated, and that was unfortunate. He was a good employee, but I think he just couldn't get beyond being told he needed to be vaccinated.
Sure. No, that number is definitely better than what I remember us talking about initially. So that's great. Thank you again for a thorough report.
Commissioner Chang, any questions?
No, just I'd like to echo your sentiments, Chief. Thank you, Chief Rueda, for all you do during these trying times.
Commissioner Bo. You're on mute. You're still on mute.
I couldn't find the button. What can I say? Old age.
We'll let it go.
Chief, you mentioned that we had had members of the fire team also become infected with COVID, and obviously that I'm guessing that contributed to the higher than normal number of hours associated with time off. To the extent that a fire person or an EMT, and I guess really the same folks, are in fact injured with COVID, do you account for that as an injury on the job if they become infected from work? In terms of statistics, you've got two statistics: injury time off and sickness time off, both of which were a little higher than usual.
They are by state law considered injured on duty.
That's what I was thinking. Thank you. Yeah, and it certainly seems appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner Bo. Chief Rueda, I had a question about your report on the gasoline spill and the wireless emergency alert system. Can you describe briefly for me how that's supposed to work, because I see that it's an important part of our ability to get word out. I also see, you know, that you call it a force multiplier. That Alhambra wash runs right next to my house, as you know. And I could smell the gasoline long before I got any sort of alert. The only alert that me or my wife got, I believe, came from Nixle. So I'm not sure how this WEA is supposed to work or what I was supposed to get, but I don't think I got it. So I wanted to make sure that we were doing something to make sure that the system that we have that's great, sounds wonderful, that's a force multiplier, actually does what we're expecting it to do.
So Nixle is a system run by the police, managed by the police department, and it's a subscription system. So you at some point dialed the text and went through that process. WEA, as it's referred to, Wireless Emergency Alert, is a system that is licensed by FEMA. So Chief Encontro and I have both been through training, and we're both licensed through FEMA to issue alerts. And they are basically Amber Alerts that provide an opportunity for us to give a 360 character message about an emergency that may be occurring in our jurisdiction. The only way that you did not receive it was if you've somehow disabled that function on your phone, which you can go into your phone and disable alerts and warnings, which some people do because they don't want to get the Amber Alerts. The only alert you can't disable is the presidential alert. When the president wants to send a message to every American with a cell phone, he can do that. He or she can do that, but people can disable their phones from our local alerts. That may be what occurred in your.
Well, I will definitely check that. I figured that that's what it was, but nobody in my family that has a cell phone remembers getting an Amber style alert that day. And if it's based on geography, you can't be any closer to the wash than all of us were here in our house. So I just wanted to make sure that we were doing something through the fire department and police department, and I don't know what that thing would be without sending out an alert, but something to confirm that whatever we're doing is actually functioning the way we anticipate it functioning.
We got feedback right away
Did you?
from residents that were asked to go to our website and our Twitter account for follow-up information. So we did get confirmation, and my phone at the scene actually received the alert. So I knew it went out.
Okay.
And it was the actual software informs us that it was a successful message sent. The backup action that we took that evening was actually the police department sent patrol vehicles through the neighborhoods looking for people that may be outside or clearly looking for some kind of answer, and we're providing information that way.
Luckily, we were smart enough to go inside when we smelled the gas, so we weren't caught outside. But okay, well, I appreciate that.
Jeff,
It was 2 months ago, so maybe we're all forgetting. But as long as we're confident that it's working, I appreciate your insight on that. Vice Chair Firestone.
guys, I did have a follow-up question. Just begs the question, Chief, whatever prompted that leak, do they feel that it's been addressed so that won't happen again?
It was actually a highly publicized traffic accident into one of the gasoline pumps at Glen Arm and Arroyo in Pasadena. And through a series of events, the automatic shutoff failed, the manual shutoff failed, and resulted in several thousand gallons of gasoline running into the storm drain before the fire department could get there, utilize the electrical panel to shut it off, and then attempt to dike the remaining gasoline from entering the storm drain. But
Pretty
yeah,
rare.
unfortunate set of circumstances.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief Rueda? Seeing none, the recommendation of staff is to receive and file the fire department report. Do I have a motion on that? Thank you, Vice Chair Firestone, seconded by Commissioner Chang. All in favor?
All right.
Seeing all hands, that passes unanimously, and we'll move on to Parks and Public Works. Director Throne.
Thank you, Chair Buzzell. You have my report in front of you. I did want to highlight a couple of things. One, we will be taking a recommendation to the council at their February 25th meeting for a contractor to do our next go round of multi-year tree maintenance and planting. And we're very excited about that. We did get 4 bids, which always makes life a lot easier. One of the things that was mentioned during the town hall, if you had attended that, is that the department is conducting a survey of residents as to traffic-related issues. There's a link that is in the report, and if you were fortunate enough to live near one of the intersections that we've done some more detailed study, you would have received one in the mail that if you could send back to us, we would certainly appreciate that. Ultimately, the city council, after another review again by the Public Safety Commission of the traffic circulation study, will appear on their doorstep. We did put in new stop signs at Mission Street and Euclid. We took the recommendation of the city's traffic engineer to update those. The council awarded a design contract to Dudek Engineering to design a replacement to a very large box culvert that runs underneath Lacey Park. And we are wrapping up our consultant evaluation process for a firm to come in and evaluate the space needs and utilization for the city's police station and police department. So we will also be making that recommendation to the council on February 25th. That concludes my report. As always, if you see something, please let us know. You are the eyes and ears for us. And so if you see it, we can't fix it unless we know about it. So you can give us a call, you can email us, or you can use the Go Request app that's available from the App Store or the Google Store. And that concludes the Public Works Department's February report, or December through January report. Excuse me, sir.
Director Throne, thank you. I have a quick question for you on streetlights. I have, well, actually I have 2 questions for you. I have a street light on Monterey and Merino Terrace that's out. I attempted to put in a Go Request. I'm not sure if it went through because, as you know, Go Request thinks I'm outside the neighborhood and it makes it difficult for me to submit requests. But my question to you is there a process in place for evaluating the status of streetlights? Does somebody from your department drive around at night to try to find lights that are out, or are we relying solely on Go Request or some other form of notification of streetlights that are out?
It's about 50-50. When we have one of our personnel come in on standby, we keep them for at least 3 hours. And if they have completed the task that they were called back to work on, then they're to drive around and make note as to where streetlights are out. Our residents are also very good at letting us know. If you could send me an email to the location, and if there's a number, we will try to figure out if it's ours or if it's Edison's or if it belongs to South Pasadena. Sometimes it's not clear. You can also trick the Go Request app by giving an address that's clearly in San Marino, and then put in the description box actually where it is.
Yes, I don't know which ones are Edison's, but this one, I think it's 3528 is a number, but I'll send you an email. It's east of the end of my street, so it's definitely in San Marino.
Mm-hmm.
West is South Pass, but east is definitely us. But I will send you an email.
All of the streetlights that have fluted poles and acorn globes on the top, those are all San Marino.
That's all.
Ones that look like your standard I belong to Edison streetlights belong to Edison.
Okay, this is definitely fluted, so it's
Just one of ours.
yes, just east of Marino Terrace and Monterey. Let's go around the room for other questions. Commissioner Bo, any questions from you? I know you have one.
Well, actually, I just wanted to make an observation or share with you that I've received at least one piece of feedback, Michael, indicating that the link to get the traffic survey didn't seem to be functioning. And I actually proved that report correct by trying to access it. I did get access when I went to the website to the city departments, to Parks and Public Works, to a little reference to a traffic circle in the lower left-hand corner of the website, to a website link, but the report, the survey that I got and I filled in, and you can throw it away, I was just doing it to convince myself that it worked, was only 2 pages, and it didn't look anything like the one that my neighbor, who must have been one of the guys who lived near enough, actually received it mailed to him. So I'm not sure what survey people are really able to get to. Maybe you or maybe somebody in the technology department might know the answer to that. But the one that my neighbor has is about 5 pages long with lots of boxes, and and I think that's the one you were referring to as you're going to be using shortly.
Oh, yes, thank you, Commissioner Bug. I will check on whether or not that link is broken. And the surveys should be the same, the online one as well as the mailed one, but I will verify that. Thank you for that. That's important feedback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I probably, when I went online today to the city website, to Parks and Public Works, and changed my way down, I got what was a 2-page survey, and it was asking me if I wanted to have any signs built or put in and things like that. So
Okay.
Yeah, and Director Thrum, for whatever it's worth, I had the same experience. You click on the link that's in your report, and it links to the city's website, but then it says 404 not found.
Oh, that's terrible. Okay.
And I did also find the same circulation, the same study. It's called traffic study on the, but it's on the website, but it's a Google Doc, and you can fill it out as Commissioner Bo said, but the link is definitely not working.
Okay.
And I wonder if it hasn't been working, and this is the information upon which you're going to be basing some conclusions, and people are not being able to submit what they want, perhaps we fix the link and extend the time to respond. I don't know if it's been broken the whole time or part of the time, but if people haven't been able to fill the survey out, we're not going to get useful responses if they can't fill it out. So maybe we consider extending it past February 11th.
Well, that is certainly extremely reasonable. And I will check all that out, and I will get back to the commission probably in the next week or so. I'll just send you all a general email, as well as extending it, if that's what we choose to do, through all of our social media, as well as through the city's website.
you might copy the members of the city council as well on that email.
And assuming that this doesn't hold it up, Director Thrum, when were we expecting to see the revised circulation study at our next meeting?
Probably not until April.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, just to conclude,
Yes, go ahead.
with regard to this neighborhood traffic feedback form, which may or may not be the same study, I don't know. But will we be receiving a summary of the results of these studies?
Of course.
And would that be maybe at the next meeting? Or will that come in April also?
Depending on how long we extend it,
Good point.
shortly thereafter, I was going to be sharing raw results with both the commission and the council.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Thank you, Chair.
Welcome. Commissioner Chang, any questions?
Yeah, Director Strong. Yeah, I did receive a snail mail on the survey. I filled it out. I don't know if you received it already. But thanks for sending that. And also thank you. I put in a couple other requests and they've been addressed within a few weeks. So appreciate that too. Thank you.
Commissioner Firestone, any questions? Alternate Tobiano, do you have any questions?
None for me, thank you. I just want to let you know that my camera is not working. It's a new device and I can't get it to work.
Acting Chief Blondet, you had something you wanted to add?
Yes, sir. Just related to your light list, the officers, for as long as I've been here, what they do every night is they compile a light list and then they forward that to Public Works, probably in addition to what Mr. Throne's personnel does. So if you're finding that one's not getting addressed, if it doesn't work through the notification system, call us too. Let us know. We can add it to our list.
Wonderful. Perfect. That's fantastic. Thank you. Any other questions from any commissioners? Any questions from any member of the public? Seeing none, the recommendation from staff is that we receive and file the Public Works Department report. Do I have a motion to that effect? Commissioner Bowe, thank you very much. Seconded by Commissioner Chang. All in favor?
Aye.
That carries unanimously. And we'll move on to approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our December 6th meeting? Commissioner Firestone, thank you. Second. Commissioner Bowe, thank you. All in favor? Seeing all hands, that motion carries unanimously. And we'll move on to the donation to the police and fire departments from the Chinese Club of San Marino. Who's handling that one? I'm sorry, I forget.
I will take that one, Commissioner.
Chief Rueda.
So what you have in front of you is a very, very, very generous donation from our local San Marino Chinese Club. So this is not the first donation, and I'm really honored by the generosity that they've demonstrated. It's really a pleasure to be involved in the outreach, the Mid-Autumn Festival, and now taking Mandarin lessons, our executive team taking Mandarin lessons, which is not so easy, but this just takes my breath away anyway, giving this amount of money to both the police and fire departments. And I know I speak for Chief Encontro that they've just been great partners, and they really do allow us to purchase things that we don't have in our regular city budgets. In our case, this donation will likely result in some special rescue equipment and other equipment needed for our fire apparatus. So greatly appreciated, humbled by the donation. And I know I speak for Chief Encontro that we're both very thankful.
Wonderful. I hope I speak for the entire commission when I ask you to pass along our thanks as well to them, as the Public Safety Commission greatly appreciates their partnership with both the police and the fire departments. Do we have any comments from any commissioners on item number 5, the donation from the Chinese Club?
From the videos we see in your Mandarin is coming along quite nice, Chief.
It's a good thing you're not under oath. It has really been a challenge, but a big part of the coursework has been understanding the culture and how things develop and why. So it's been a real education. I've enjoyed it. And it's funny to hear my coworkers bungle the Chinese language.
Acting Chief Blondet, I was just curious whether the police department had any idea on how they were going to spend this generous donation.
We'll probably talk about it with the chief, but I have a few thoughts. One of the things that, since Chief Rose mentioned it, what I was thinking about right now is that we're looking at our AED devices, which are kind of becoming outdated. Patches for the AED devices, stuff like that. So I think we'll look at a few different things, but that might be one of them because that's not currently budgeted for. So
wonderful. Wonderful. Well, with that, I will entertain a motion to receive and file the report on the donation. Everyone's moving, so we have a motion and a second, and it's unanimously carried. So moving on to number 6, review of the safety striping on Huntington Drive between Monterey Road and West Haven Road. Director Throne.
Thank you, Chair Buzzell. What you have in front of you is our traffic engineer's recommendations to improve and reduce the amount of traffic collisions we have recently been experiencing along that stretch of Huntington Drive. If you've ever driven it, you've got the between Monterey and West Haven, you have angled parking. It's a very, very wide strip of pavement. And it appears that drivers are becoming confused as to if there's a 4th lane going westbound. And so very recently, we've had some situations occur where the drivers suddenly realize that there's no 4th lane, and they make a very rapid maneuver to go from where they are into the number 3 lane. Often or on occasion, it's not been very successful, and there's been vehicle collisions. And that's something that we need to resolve. So you have in your packet the traffic engineer's report. I've got Mr. Norman Bakuli now. He is one of the traffic engineers that worked on this project, and he's available if you've got specific safety questions. But the main recommendation is to restripe the area between the angle parking and the number 3 westbound through lane. We will be adding some new signs, some reflective tape down at the corner of West Haven and Huntington Drive. Modify the space in between the angle parking with some chevron striping, which is shown in your packet on it's page 54 of 92. And then to install some post delineators toward the end of that parking area on the west side. Those are there to visually reinforce the need for the driver to make an entry or a merge into the number 3 lane. The commission may recall that last year, toward the end of the year, you reviewed some striping modifications at the northwest corner of Sierra Madre at Huntington Drive. And that's where we have the bus stop, and that's to the east of this project. That work will be done in the next 2 weeks. And we did have a recommendation from the traffic engineer either to use post delineators there or very large white domes. The council felt that white domes were more appropriate, but at this end of that extra pavement there along Huntington Drive, the white domes really won't be very effective. You really want the drivers to be able to see that what they think is a lane or a merge lane or an acceleration lane, however you want to, or a parking lane into the number 3 westbound lane. Post delineators will give them that visual clue that it's time to move over. So what we are looking for is any questions or comments you might have, and then if you support this, making a recommendation, to that respect. This item is going to the city council this Wednesday for them also to weigh in and give us direction so that we can get the striping done. That concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Director Throne. Just to make sure I'm clear, the posts that you were talking about are going at the intersection that's immediately to the west of Monterey and Huntington, correct?
Yes, it will be at West Haven. If you
Oh,
look,
sorry, I asked the wrong question. To the east. Oh, the reason I'm asking this is because having driven that a few times, it appears to me that the people turning right off of San Marino, Sierra Madre are often going through that small painted stripe that's there now, and they're like creating the fourth lane. And so part of this problem originates way back there. And is the work that's already going to be done going to remedy that initial problem where people
Yes.
are turning too tight onto Huntington as they come south and turn to go west?
yes, it should cure that problem with the modification of striping. The striping is going to be brighter and bolder. There will be large domes, large white domes on that radius that you will turn when you go southbound Sierra Madre to westbound Huntington Drive. So you'll have that clue that you're not supposed to cross over that. Plus, we're going to be marking bus only or bus lane in that pavement directly in front of the bus stop. So there'll be a lot of clues there. It will also go up to where the Chevron driveway is. So you'll be able to see that this work, if you look at page 54, you'll see that it's striped with chevrons. That will also give you another clue. This will be thermoplastic striping. So at night, it will be very bright and very visible that this is not a driving lane. This is this is for the parking area.
And is that the time of day when you're seeing the most problems? I'm assuming when there are cars parked there, people don't get that confused, but is it when there are no cars parked in these spaces that we're seeing the most confusion?
It seems to be the trend is in the dark hours, pretty much from about, let's see here, from about 8 p.m. through about 5 a.m. is according to the accident data. That's where the majority of colliding with a fixed object has occurred. If you've been out there, the street lighting is far removed from the edge of the traveled way. And so it is very dark. It was restriped back in 2017 as part of the striping, as part of the work to resurface that area. And it's just painted. We're going to be putting thermoplastic, which is highly reflective at night and in inclement weather.
At this point, I'll invite comment from other commissioners. Commissioner Bo, do you have any questions or comments?
I do. Michael, I have an observation and a question. Maybe I'll throw out the observation first. I have attended a number of Zoom meetings over the last 2 or 3 years, and one of the wonderful features that we seem to be able to use on some of them is that the speaker can project things on the screen for everyone to see. And I'm thinking that pieces of your report, if you could have had it on your screen and shared your screen with us, it could have been much easier to look at. Yes, like that. Which leads me then to the opportunity to ask the question. And it's a follow-on to the one that Chair Bozell asked. In the top of the illustration on page 54 that we're looking at, to the right, in front of the gasoline station, I know we were talking about some striping. We have not included the new striping in this picture, have we?
That striping has already gone through the council and approved, and we should be striping that in the next 2 weeks.
No, I'm not asking about the approval. I'm saying I don't see it in this picture.
Oh, yes.
Because
it's-
if we did have new striping, I'm guessing at the right-hand side of Huntington Drive in this picture at the gasoline station, I don't remember, but is there some striping that would essentially suggest there is no fourth lane here in that right at Monterey Road, so that we've already got people moved over before they get to Monterey Road?
Yes, that doesn't show in this particular image, but it is directly to the right of the buildings that you see on the right-hand edge of that exhibit. That's the Chevron station. So directly in that white border space is actually where that striping concludes, which would give the visual and tactile clues to the drivers who are making that right turn that there is no fourth lane.
Great. And I can't quite visualize this, and I apologize for not having driven over there and looked at it. But in the area marked 1 and 2, it looks like it's gold on, there's a gold line on this thing. And I think that's, maybe that's over there on page 55 in the photo in the middle left. Is that, am I correct? You're going to have the curb painted bright yellow?
It will be reflective tape.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
it won't be yellow. Yellow's the wrong color to use. It would be white.
So it will be white.
Yeah, it should be white.
Okay. And that's where 2 is where you've changed out the stop sign as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
And those little slash black and yellow thingies there, are those signage also?
Yes, that is an object marker.
Thank you. I don't, the terminology is beyond me.
Yes, and those are typically
Debits
used,
and credits I got, object markers, no.
yes, those are typically used at the ends of things you don't want to crash into.
Great.
And so we've already, this pole's been struck twice already. So we're not interested really in replacing it a third time. So this particular placard, it's not often used in this case, but the traffic engineers really wanted to reinforce that there's something there, there's an object there. And people do know from their driving experience that you want to be to the left of those signs.
Thank you.
Director Throne, I have a question now that we're on page 55. The picture in the top, am I seeing, again, the terminology is not there with me yet, but am I seeing white posts in the middle of the lane there with the edge of the parking area?
Yes, those are the post delineators that I mentioned, that as you're in that parking area, in the angle parking area, if you happen to drift over because you're still not sure what you're supposed to be doing, those posts will guide you visually to get back onto the number 3 lane of Huntington instead of trying to proceed straight, impacting what you see in the photograph, the middle photograph on that page.
Good thing. What's the impact of those poles? And perhaps it's just a visualization issue here, but on right turners onto West Haven.
If you're in the number 3 lane, you would not want to, you would not turn into them, but you see that you've got a stripe on your right that will guide you into West Haven. So if you look at the image on the prior page that shows number 5, maybe Chair, if you could scroll down there, scroll to that, see where it shows the number 5. See that there's a line that guides you over.
Okay. All right, and we don't anticipate that that's going to slow drivers down in such a way that it's going to create a hazard in the number 3 as people like quickly have to slow very far down in order to make that right turn.
It should. Now, it's no different than any other right turns people make from the number 3 lane in San Marino
Okay.
on
I
Huntington
suspect that
Drive.
People have been cutting sort of at a diagonal through that stripy section until now. So they'll have to do a much broader, wider turn.
Exactly the same scenario as you turn right onto Huntington from Sierra Madre. A lot of poor driver behavior.
Commissioner Bo, any other questions?
Yeah, just one. Obviously, this is the low cost solution. A higher cost solution would be to extend the curb out to fill in the area where 5 is and the area at the other end, the corner, to actually bring the street out and make it parallel with the block west of West Haven. I assume you considered that and concluded that this was a better approach at this time.
This is the better approach at this time. The city does have a Huntington Drive Mission Street beautification program.
Yeah.
That this would be one of those areas I would suspect to spend part of that $1 million. I don't necessarily have $1 million to spend at this corner. And really, this is a very low tech, high impact, pardon the language, high benefit modification to make. If it proves to work very well, then in the future, future folks can decide whether or not they want to make it a hard object like a raised island.
Mhm. Thank you.
Director Throne, were there other measures that were considered and rejected at this location for some reason?
I think I would have to ask our traffic engineer what other items that TransTech look at. That would be Norman.
Yes. So we look at all the different options. It's a combination of recommendations between Bauman, who wrote and stamped the report, and me. And this is, in fact, this little island here was something that I added. It's something wasn't in Bauman's recommendation. So this is, I think, the best that we could come up based on the situation. And this is very appropriate because of the uniqueness of this location. This is the only one. As I was driving, I was here last Wednesday. I was helping the city lay out the improvements on the corner of San Marino, and I happened to just walk by. And yeah, there's a lot of evidence of that corner being hit multiple times. And this is for the low cost treatment. I agree with Commissioner Thorne. One of the commissioner's recommendation, eventually really the permanent solution is for this to put a hardscaping and line it up properly. But for the meantime, this is the best recommendation for the money that we can do, or we're recommending.
Okay. I mean, I guess what I was asking is, we understand that this is the recommendation from your firm and from Director Throne. In order to evaluate alternatives, I was wondering if there were any other than hardscape extension, were there any other measures that were considered less attractive for some reason that we might be interested to hear about before we talk about a recommendation on this?
I cannot think of any other options that was considered, but we decided not to go forward. I think this is what you see here on the screen is what we came up with as far as recommendation.
All right, Director Bo, are you complete? You are. Okay, good. Commissioner Firestone, do you have any questions?
You guys covered. Thanks.
Commissioner Chang?
I just remember stuff.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just remember one of the things, but that was no longer needed. We were thinking on the stop sign, It didn't make the report, but we were discussing internally in the office that we could put a reflectorized sleeve facing westbound. But since we went ahead and decided to put this object marker, those diagonal stripes, the vertical black, yellow, then that's no longer necessary. That's the only option that we considered and said it's not needed anymore, since the object marker would take care of that reflectivity.
Okay. Thank you for that. While I'm looking at, I'll hold my question for later. Commissioner Chang, do you have any questions?
Yeah, page 54. What is that? Between 2 and 5, there's a diagonal line. What is that line? Is that going to be painted? What is
That is a valley gutter. So
That's
it's concrete, so it shows up as a lighter color.
Oh, okay. So it's not a line that's going to be painted or anything.
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? No. I have one follow-up question. Number 4 on this sheet that we're looking at is a one-way sign for people coming off of West Haven, turning onto Huntington. How does that help the situation?
Oh, no, this one is just to comply with MUTCD. One-way street with a hard median like that typically are installed on the far side. Not right now. It's the sign that the one-way sign is below the stop sign. So we're moving them from the stop sign and putting it in the far side.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Just to meet the requirements of the MUTCD.
Understood. Alternate Tobiano, do you have any questions?
No, I could see everyone's questions are good. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any member of the public?
Yes, I have a question.
Who's speaking? I'm sorry, who's speaking?
This is Michael Kalaki.
And could you give us your address, please?
Yes, I reside at 1485 West Haven, which is the house that is at the northwest corner of West Haven and Huntington. My home is the fixed object that most of these vehicles are crashing into.
Thank you very much. Go ahead with your comments. If you could limit them to 2 minutes or less, I would appreciate it.
Yes, I've reviewed the suggestions, and I do want to express my appreciation to Chief Encontro, Chief Rueda, and Engineer Throne for meeting with me and speaking with me on this. I am not a traffic engineer, but I do have 15 years of experience representing families and victims of serious traffic collisions and dangerous traffic conditions. I work closely with traffic engineers, accident reconstructionists, and traffic safety experts to determine the causes of automobile collisions. I've also lived at this intersection for 6 years. Although I appreciate the measures that are being recommended, I believe that we need to also please consider some additional suggestions. In my experience living at this intersection, collisions are resulting primarily because of 3 causes. 1, drivers are physically able to drive at high speed in the parking area between Monterey and West Haven. This is dangerous for drivers who are drunk, asleep, or not paying attention. Secondly, there is a lack of timely warning and surprise when drivers are in the parking area because they think they're in a number 4 lane. And third, drivers driving along the north edge of lane number 3, immediately up against the current white line, which is the south edge of the parking area, are too far north so that when they finally approach my corner at West Haven and Huntington, that line actually leads them into the northwest corner of West Haven and Huntington. The most recent collision, which is actually not reflected in the traffic collision report, is a December 12th collision, which was a rollover collision, where that driver only clipped the corner and had a rollover where she then skidded down Huntington for a couple of 100 feet. So I have some suggestions that I would like to request that are pleased to be considered. First, all white lines shown in the diagrams should have rumble strips placed underneath the white paint. This is because these drivers are not only not knowing that they're in this area, but actually feeling the warning rather than just seeing the warning is going to let them know that they shouldn't be driving where they are. Also, perhaps consider channelizers going east to west along the southernmost line of the parking area, the entire distance between Monterey and West Haven, because that will physically keep cars out of that area and into lane number 3. Otherwise, they're going to, again, crash into my home. And then also, if we could please consider an island similar to Huntington Drive between Stoneman and Pascualito Drive, where the cars, if they're trying to get into that parking area, would physically make a turn and get off of Huntington and then be driving at a much slower speed. Now, removing and redesigning the east-west part of the parking structure or parking lot exit would be very important. Right now, if you look at the diagram on page 54, the large photograph shows the exit on the west side of that parking lot. That is at a diagonal that is pointing out toward Huntington lane number 3. And the problem with that is that any driver that is trying to exit that parking lot will have to look deeply over their left shoulder, looking behind them, and then accelerate quickly from a stop to join up with 40 to 50 mile an hour traffic, similar to the old 110 freeway. And if their car is not lined up perfectly, they're going to drive right into my front yard again. And also, the problem is if you have any car that's trying to go north on West Haven Drive, they are forced to drive out into the number 3 lane of traffic, going from 0 speed up to merging with 40 to 50 mile an hour traffic so that they can then quickly turn and go back down to 25 miles an hour on West Haven. So that exit pushes cars out into a high-speed road so that they can turn onto a low-speed road. Now, the object markers, although I do truly appreciate the efforts to try to make this a safe situation, the 2 object markers on the light pole and the stop sign and the painted curb, quite frankly, are going to make the front of my house look like a railroad crossing. And it's unnecessary because although we are trying to stop cars from crashing into my home again, the problem is that this gives a last minute warning. It does not give advanced warning, which is what's needed. So all of these measures should actually be at Monterey and Huntington, not West Haven and Huntington. That's what's going to give the drivers plenty of notice that they're not going to get anywhere near the front yard of, or the light poles, or the fire hydrant, or my children's bedroom, which is where the October 23rd collision occurred when a vehicle drove up onto my front yard, through my hedge, into my children's bedrooms, and crashed into the structure when my child was 2 feet away. Now, the next suggestion is that the one-way sign, quite frankly, I'm concerned that it's going to just add additional signs, cause further confusion. There doesn't really seem to be a need for that sign because in the 6 years that I've lived there, I have never seen a vehicle try to make a left turn across the median at West Haven and Huntington. Furthermore, there is no similar sign at Huntington and Waverly or Wembley or Kensington or Charlton or Shenandoah or Old Mill or any other road along Huntington Drive. So it's not uniform with every other street, but adding additional signs of right turn only on the stop sign or one way when that is not what's causing these collisions is just going to add further confusion for drivers. Now, the issue here is that people, as they are approaching from Sierra Madre or from Monterey, are driving too far north, either in the parking area or even in lane number 3, but that lane is far too wide. We need to definitely look to confirm that the width of lane number 3 is in fact the proper width. I believe it's not, because when Huntington was repaved and restriped, it was not striped correctly. And I think that that lane, that extra wide lane number 3 is then leading vehicles like the December 12 crash into the corner, which is clipping it. And only the passenger side front wheel is clipping that curb and causing the rollover collision. There are many are not aware that they're driving in that area. And so that's why a rumble strip or some other sort of physical structure, whether it be an island or a channelizer or some sort of shaking of their vehicle, lets them know that they shouldn't be there. And then, although it may not be noted in the collision investigation data because of the timing of when the data was retrieved, the December 12 collision is not noted in the accident history. So 2021 actually had 3 serious collisions. One drove into my children's bedroom. One took out the light pole 6 weeks later. And then 5 days after that, there was a rollover collision with an elderly lady that had to be cut out of her vehicle and taken to a hospital. So I would ask that we try to find a way that allows the front of my home to look like every other home in San Marino, but at the same time, provide a safe environment where vehicles are not driving in that parking area. And I believe that rumble strips can definitely help with that. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clackey. Any other comments, questions from the public? Seeing none, we'll move back to the commissioners and Director Throne. Director Throne, were these measures that have been suggested by Mr. Clackey considered and rejected for some reason? In particular, I'm curious about the measures he's referencing down at Monterey. Why have we not considered putting like posts of some sort there to force people into the number 3 lane who might be turning and too quickly or drifting north as they come from Sierra Madre or east of there?
I would have to defer to our traffic engineers.
Yeah, we did not consider it at that time. I believe we didn't have the information exactly. I, in particular, did not have the report. We weren't very sure. There was a striping plan on San Marino, and it's if the main traffic coming westbound is that are turning into this lane. Is coming from San Marino, and that's being addressed now. And that's why we didn't have enough data to show, for example, how many traffic are making a right turn in Monterey and turning westbound on. So it wasn't because of lack of data, we didn't have the information to make that recommendation at that time. But it's suggestions is something that we can look at. I think we were very aware of some of the potential appearance of these things, and we wanted to minimize what we could do to mitigate this situation at that time. So this is what we came up with.
Did you all consider, I mean, because as I'm looking at this and hearing Mr. Kalaki speak, it seems to me that the suggestions for an earlier warning system at the east end of the parking and some sort of audible or physical vibration creating device in the parking lanes or in that striped section where you're suggesting putting striping would alert the drivers much earlier to the potential for collision than the posts at the west end.
Correct. So let me just add placement of advanced warning really are typically placed for an actual lane where the lane becomes, it ends. So this is not really an appropriate place to say, hey, the road ends, or because it's not a travel lane. So that will actually give a kind of a mixed message if you put a narrow lane ahead or a narrowing lane ahead, because that's not an actual lane, it's a parking lane. So the RPMs may be something, if Michael or the city council would approve, something can be added on those diagonals, which is number just below number 6, behind the parking cars, and those could have a like a rumble strip effect. We can even put it at the beginning too, so they feel that they must have entered the wrong an area they shouldn't be. That can be added. We have that in my previous slide in Pasadena, where we put a combination of white stripe with RPMs underneath, or next to it, is something we could consider. We'll work with Michael on how to come up with additional changes.
Okay. I'd like to go around the room, so to speak, to the commissioners to get their comments. But before I do that, we have been discussing a potential way of better communicating any recommendations that come from this commission to the city council, and that would be to appoint one of our own to act as a liaison to the city council with respect to any particular item upon which we're giving a recommendation. It can be a rotating position. It's not a permanent spot, but as we identify and comment and recommend on particular items on our agenda from month to month, I will be asking for folks to volunteer, and if not, I will appoint somebody to go to the next city council if they're able to advise the city council on our discussion and our recommendation, and have a direct line from us to them. For this particular item, I'd like to ask Commissioner Bowe if he's available to be a liaison on this striping issue as we move forward.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Bowe. From my perspective, I think that perhaps if this is presented to the city council now, it should also address Mr. Kalaki's suggestions of some sort of more early warning devices, some rumble strips, or early, are they called channelizers, the poles? Something earlier on that pushes the traffic out into the number 3 lane. I also thought it was interesting, and it looks, maybe it's just the picture, but it looks like the number 3 lane might be wider at the point where these lines are made. If we're drawing these lines, we should make sure that the width of the number 3 lane there in front of the businesses is the same width as the number 3 lane after you pass Mr. Kalaki's house, so that there's a straight shot as if the curb just continues on. It's a little difficult to see in the picture. It goes kind of at an angle. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to end up, but from my perspective, I would recommend doing the striping as we have it. I would like to include in that recommendation the rumble strip and some sort of device to push the traffic that's coming from the east end, westbound on Huntington, out into the number 3 lane before they get to the parking lane there. I'd also like to hear from Director Throne or the traffic engineer about Mr. Kalaki's points about the object, what do we call them? I know
Object marker.
the object markers, and whether that's too little too late.
Go ahead, Norman.
Yeah, well, I see the point. Of the property owner, he doesn't want to have his house look any different than any other house in the corner. But the reality is, this is a very unique part of this roadway. I was driving up and down Huntington. I couldn't find something very similar. So we do need some treatment to make sure that this corner is visible. Especially, I was confirming what the data, at least the data that we have on file, even 5 of the collisions in the 5.5 years are all in the evening. In fact, of the 7, 5 are involving westbound. So all the situation is happening. So we do need to provide some treatment. Now, the object marker is something that was chosen to provide the maximum visibility since the accident has been happening in the evening in the dark areas. There are possibly some alternative. I don't know what those are. I have to go back and confer with Bauman and Michael. But we need to put something there to kind of provide some illumination there for night accidents. And right now it's the OM3. The object marker is the one that's recommended.
I'm having some thoughts about this, the readiness of this to go to the city council, but I will invite other commissioners to give their comments. So Commissioner Bo.
I'm uncomfortable recommending that the council approve this at this point. I hate to do this to you.